let me start because we're going to talk a little bit about the poor forest management in California and how preventable these wildfires are out there if only common sense measures were adopted. But that does not negate the human toll that has gone on out there. It is one of the saddest things, and I've had this happen to friends of mine, and I'm sure most of you have too. If somebody works so hard their entire life, they have a dream, they want a house for themselves and their family. It is so built into the American psyche that is a huge achievement in one's life to be able to get their own home. And it means so much to everybody and all the family memories that are in there, et cetera. And you're watching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes burn down. I don't want to forget the human component of all of this, and let the people of California that are living through this know that our thoughts, our prayers, our love are all sent to all of you. I'm sure it's not exactly heartwarming to hear that, well, you'll be able to rebuild, blah, blah. It will turn up your life. It will just change things around. The entire trajectory of your life now is in a whole different direction. There is so much that we're learning that to me is infuriating and just angers me. I saw Joe Biden out there with Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, probably his biggest booster in the entire country, and he stuck with him to the end. And it's nice that Joe went out there. It's appropriate that he went out there. Where was Joe when Hurricane Helene destroyed, parts of Georgia and especially the northwestern part and the mountainous part of North Carolina? I mean, they still have not caught up with helping the people that desperately need help there. Where were they in East Palestine after that train wreck happened? They were nowhere to be found. Joe couldn't bother, didn't take the time to go out and meet with the people there. And, as we look at some of the background here, there is something called the science of forest management, and it is a science. And interestingly, you can go back, and one person that predicted all of this, let's go back to 2018, and this is Donald Trump, the president, with Gavin Newsom talking about forest management. Listen.
It's cleaned out and protected. You got to take care of the floors, the floors of the forests, very important. You look at other countries where they do it differently, and it's a whole different story. I was with the president of Finland, and he said, we have a much different, we're a forest nation. He called it a forest nation. And they spend a lot of time on raking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem. So I know everybody's looking at that, to that end, and it's going to work out.
I mean, that was him in 2018. And just 4 months ago, Donald Trump spoke about the need for California to send more water. And this will become very relevant in a minute when I tell you what's actually going on out there, to downstate to prevent these fires. Now, I lived in California for 5 years. Hope Sound was a very affluent area of Santa Barbara. I went back there a couple of years after I had left, and the whole community was burned to the ground. This has been happening now for decades. And we know that they have these long droughts in California. When I had been out in California, desalinization was a big topic of discussion because they needed fresh water. Water was always a problem. But this is Donald Trump talking about 4 months ago, the need for California to send more water downstate to help prepare for firefighters. And I'll explain why this is relevant in a second.
You have so much water, and all those fields that are right now barren, the farmers would have all the water they needed, and you could revert water up into the hills where you have all the dead forests, where the forests are so brittle, because no place is like California. I go to Austria. The head of Austria tells me, we have trees that are much more flammable than what you have in California. We never have forest fires because they maintain their forests. And you have all that water that could be used as water, what they call water flow, where where the land would be damp. And you'd stop many of these horrible fires that are costing billions and billions of dollars by the federal government, etc. So one thing I'm going to do for California, vote for me, California. I'm going to give you safety. I'm going to give you a great border. And I'm going to give you more water than almost anybody has.
They don't because of environmental extremism. It is difficult, if not impossible, and the state should be responsible for it. They don't engage in controlled burns. They don't clear out the dry brush, which should be done regularly, which is the kindling for fires such as what we're watching unfold in the Pacific Palisades and beyond. A lot of the state rules protecting endangered species, is the rationale limiting the science of forestry from being practiced out there, and limiting the amount of water that gets sent from Northern California, which makes absolutely positively no sense. It is completely preventable if they put the time, energy, money, and resources into it. We now see, just think of what Donald Trump just said there, scores of, we're now finding out LA firefighters, they're at their wits' end, because they're finding all of these broken fire hydrants that are preventing them from doing their jobs, which they want to do. And they're struggling to gain control of one of the worst wildfires in LA's history. And I just wonder how many brand new fire hydrants could have been bought with the $17 million that the Democratic mayor, Karen Bass, cut from the firefighting budget, because that's exactly what she did just months ago. The LA Fire Department had their budget cut by a staggering $17.6 million this financial year, according to records. And this drastic decrease in funding for the fire department was the second largest cut to come out of Los Angeles and Mayor Karen Bass' fiscal budget, according to city figures. And she initially even wanted to cut more money than that. And by the way, if you're wondering where the mayor of Los Angeles is in all of this, well, she's 7,400 miles away in Africa on a political trip, as this, Los Angeles is like in this apocalyptic hellscape right now. There are people posting on X from LA saying, resign while you're in Ghana, one person commenting. Anyway, she traveled with three other people to Ghana for the inauguration of the president there, who was elected last year. Hey, Karen, quote, how's Ghana? Another person asking. LA, you ask? Yeah, it's burning to the effing ground, but it's better you're not here anyways because you're useless. Others demanding that she resign from her post. You're a disgrace. You're an embarrassment. I mean, there is no excuse. Why is she not on the first plane home as soon as this became a problem? Now, the problem even gets worse than that. Now, if you're not going to practice, the science of forestry, and you're not going to have hydrants that have water in them, and you're not going to clear out the kindling and the brush because of environmental extremist agendas, and you're not going to have controlled burns, again, another huge mistake, then, this is entirely preventable and predictable, what is happening here. If you're going to put endangered species above the lives and the livelihoods and the homes of the people in your state, you have to ask why. Why would you do that? And here's where it even gets worse than that, because I don't know if you've ever noticed, while Mayor Bass was busy cutting off the fire department's budget to the bone, she somehow did manage to find hundreds of millions of dollars for green energy conversion for the port of Los Angeles. This ought to make everybody in the Southland in LA pretty pissed off. But here's the headline from a website, the Port of Los Angeles website. Port of Los Angeles awarded $412 million in a grant from the U.S. EPA for zero emissions transformation. Thank you, EPA Administrator Michael Regan, for your support of our vision, a zero emissions future, said Karen Bass. With this funding, the nation's busiest port will be able to continue to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality. Well, how's the air quality out there today? I don't think it's doing too well in LA today. Together in partnership with the federal government, industry, labor, environmental justice groups, we are building a greener, healthier LA. Doesn't look like it to me. The port and its private sector partners will match the EPA grant with an additional $236 million, bringing the total new investment in zero emissions programs at the Port of Los Angeles to $644 million, and provide $50 million for a community-led zero emissions grant program, workforce development, and related engagement activities. Well, I mean, I don't see anything in there about the money to fix the broken fire hydrants or any monies to hire the firefighters that she laid off. But according to the press release, in addition to the EPA grant, there was still gazillions left over in her budget for green energy conversion. In August, LA launched their first 100% electric full-size street sweeper in the U.S. The city itself installed nearly 100 level 2 chargers and 12 fast chargers for electric vehicles throughout the city. And meanwhile, they're not taking care of the basic predictable safety needs of homeowners in California. I'm going to tell you what this is going to result in. It's going to result in more of a mass exodus. I mean, the U-Haul index came out, and once again, leading the way with the lowest net population gain and people leaving the state is California. Then you have South Carolina, Texas, Florida, Tennessee. Once again, people are just moving in droves. And the same thing with New York. Kathy Hochul wants to run for governor again. The one thing that would help New York financially, have this big congestion tax in New York City. If you go in on the lower level of the 59th Street bridge from Queens into Manhattan, it's going to be $15 on the lower level because they'll force you onto First Avenue in New York City. I know this may be a little technical, but that you will automatically be charged even if you're not heading in that direction. I mean, that's how desperately they want money, and they don't care about the poor and the middle class and working men and women that are going to be paying the bill as they try to get to work every day. But this is now, this is what environmental radicalism gets you. I'll never forget. I went out to the San Joaquin Valley. I covered this for Fox, and you had, all these, farms, massive farms that were bone dry, and there was all of this water that was available to them, and it was not made available to farmers because they wanted to protect what's called the Delta smelt. Now, the Delta smelt, if you look it up and look at a picture of it, it looks like a little minnow fish. It's not even like an exotic fish. And by the way, not even an endangered species. And they cared more about the Delta smelt than they did about the farmers, and the farmers lost their entire livelihood because they chose a minnow fish that was not even on the endangered species list over the farmers, over the people that would benefit from the farming and the food that they would produce. I mean, this is absolute madness. And then they wonder why people are leaving Los Angeles and New York and New Jersey and Illinois in droves. This is why people have had it. They're waking up. They're done. And you've destroyed your states. Law, order, safety, security, gone. Massive taxes. If you live in New York City, in New York State, 14% state and city income tax. Same thing out in Los Angeles. Same thing in all of California. Illegal immigration, sanctuary state status. Put the burden on taxpayers. Just basically just pick their pockets to the point where they're not going to stay anymore. And the quality of life has gone to hell. I mean, defund, dismantle, no bail laws, sanctuary states, known terrorists, cartel members, gang members, murderers, rapists. They just allow them into the country unvetted. But January 20th can't come fast enough. I actually can't believe what a friend of mine that lives out in the area and in California just sent me. It reminds me of when I went to New Orleans post-Katrina, and it was like, I remember driving for miles, and on either side, everything was wiped out. Entire neighborhoods are being wiped out. Caitlyn Jenner just texted me and says, you have no idea how bad it is out here. She's going to call in after the news at the bottom of the hour. and we'll get an update from her. And our prayers are with the people of California today. This is really bad.
Driving the liberals nuts. Sean Hannity is back on the radio right now.
All right, 25 till the top of the hour, 800-941-SEAN, our number if you want to be a part of the program as we now enter the new year. And it should be, by the way, an everyday priority for everybody. You've got to protect yourself. You've got to protect your family. You know, we now have known terrorists, murderers, cartel members in the country. We have a lot of violent people, very dangerous time for the country and for individuals. What is your plan if that God forbid moment ever comes into your life? You face a situation that demands personal protection. Now, I've always believed in the Second Amendment. I still do. And I also have the the less lethal launcher that is burner. That is my first option. It is a great complement to owning a firearm. If you or your family is in a situation where you are threatened, you can start with the less lethal option. And the beauty of burner is it works. I urge all of you, go to their website, byrna.com/Hannity, and take a look at the videos. I mean, it's incredible. First, it's legal in all 50 states. You don't need a permit. You don't need a background check. I not only own them, I buy them as gifts for many friends and people in my life so they can be safe and secure in their home, their business, their day-to-day life. The burner launcher has powerful deterrence, tear gas, kinetic rounds. He can hit a target easily 50, 60 feet away. And burner is now trusted by over 500 government agencies, police departments, and private security firms. Now, if you go to burner, byrna.com/Hannity, you'll get 10% off any purchase. And it may save your life one day. And this technology is amazing. We continue our coverage. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable that if you listen to the experts, a lot of what is happening with this wildfire in California could have been prevented. There's been decades of overgrowth in California forests. You know, if you look at the liability laws around controlled burns, they don't allow controlled burns. You can't remove brush. It's all related to environmental radicalism and extremism. I mean, the state itself should be involved in these controlled burns. They should be involved in cleaning out the brush, which is the kindling for these big fires. In much of California, if a landowner undertakes, a controlled burn on their own property, they have to jump through a series of hoops proving that they have the expertise to set a controlled fire that will stay controlled. But this is something the state ought to be doing. And the sad part is now we're learning, okay, well, the mayor of Los Angeles cut the L.A. firefighters' budget by a whopping, $17 million. And meanwhile, they're spending $644 million to make the port of Los Angeles, converting that into, a green energy hub, $644 million. And yet they're cutting back on firefighters. Then firefighters, they're at their wits' end trying to fight this fire. They're willing to put their lives at risk, but they're finding all these broken fire hydrants. Donald Trump warned about it in 2018, said, you better get the water from the north in Northern California down to the south because you're going to need it. And he turned out to be more than right. All the state rules protecting, quote, endangered species. I mentioned the Delta smelt that prevented farmers from being able to farm in the San Joaquin Valley. And this is all madness. Anyway, a friend of mine just sent me a video. I mean, it went on for blocks and blocks and blocks of homes just, burned to the ground. These are people's lives, being upended in ways you can't even imagine. Whenever there's a tragedy like this. Now, I'm glad to see Joe Biden went out there today, especially since he never showed up to East Palestine after that train derailment, that disaster there. Never showed up after Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. And if it wasn't for Neighbor Helping Neighbor and Samaritan's Purse and Operation Hilo, those people and Elon Musk providing communications, they'd be out of luck. Anyway, Caitlyn Jenner is with us, lives in Southern California, is very aware of the dangers of fires out there. This is something you talked about when you made your run for governor back in the day.
Boy, I certainly really did. That was like number one on my list of things to do, because fighting fires has to be offensive. And removing brush, like you said earlier, in the forest, taking fuel away. I live in Malibu, California. The Woolsey fire came right through my house, and I stayed with the house, and it made it because there was no fuel close to the house. And we just need to do more of that, do more in preparation. What's happening here in Los Angeles? Actually, today, the winds are so hard. Last night, they were between 80 and 90 miles an hour at my house. I live on top of a mountain in Malibu. And
by the way, for those people that don't know, they're called Santa Ana winds, and they come by periodically, and the winds are fierce. And if it happens while in the middle of a fire like this, it is devastating because it literally moves the embers miles away in many cases and creates new fires.
Absolutely. And I live in a Santa Ana corridor, so, I mean, every time my house gets hit. This afternoon, my roof blew off. All the tar paper on my roof, this is the second time it's happened, lifted right up off my house and was thrown all the way down the mountain. Try to get that repaired. Fortunately, I'm at the north end of Malibu. The south end of Malibu, and you get down to Pacific Palisades, is just getting destroyed. And you're right. It's about preparation. And Karen Bass isn't even in town. You mentioned that. She's off in Africa someplace. But you know who's been on the phone, all day long is Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso is the one that ran against Karen Bass, and the people of California didn't put him in place. He's a very competent businessman, really great guy, and he has a mall near where the fire was, and he goes running down there in the morning to make sure everything's going to be okay, and they had no water in the fire hydrants. And
I mean, you can't even make it up. And then Gavin Newsom, God bless Gavin, he had his emergency presser today thanking the mayor, Karen Bass, who's in Ghana, who's in Africa, for her leadership in all of this. I mean, is this some kind of bad joke?
Yeah, it really is. And then actually, you said earlier, you were talking about Biden being here and going to Santa Monica to the firehouse and, doing all of that. It was like in Santa Monica. We went out to the desert to do that a couple of days ago, some national monument out there. And he came back here and he's in town. I know because, as you know, I'm a pilot, and they had a TFR. It's a temporary flight restriction. Any place the president goes and he stays someplace, there's a TFR, a no-fly zone over the area that he's at. It's quite common. And there was a TFR here the last couple of days because he was in town. So basically all he did today was, go down the street to the local fire station and do a television appearance and then leave. That's the type. God, I can't wait for the 20th of January.
By the way, he did reveal that his son Hunter and his wife may have lost their home during this fire. They got notification yesterday their home was probably burned to the ground. And by the way, the L.A. County Fire Chief now has an estimate that 1,000 structures have been destroyed already, and they have 0% of this fire under control as of, 20 minutes ago. They don't have any of it under control, and they don't have fire hydrants that work. Explain that.
I know. Well, I keep my plane up at Camarillo Airport, and that's a station where all of these firefighting helicopters, they're based there. And unfortunately, they've been on the ground. Now, first I thought, are they on the ground because where the fire is underneath this TFR, temporary flight restriction, because Biden's there now not letting helicopters go in there. I don't know. I hope that the firefighters and the city of Los Angeles is smarter than that and not to do something like that. And I'm
well. They cut the firefighter budget by $17 million just a couple of months ago, and the fire hydrants don't work. So if you don't have firefighters and you don't have water, tell me how you're going to put out this firefight, this massive fire.
Absolutely. And I just want to know, Sean, that beautiful home in Florida, do you have a guest house?
If you need one, I have a room. If that's what you need, done. Not a problem.
You know what?
By the way, these fires have burned through 5,400 acres. Now, is there any that you actually can go to college and get a degree in forestry? You can go to college and you can be an expert. And there are known methods to prevent incidents like this from happening. That is what I find the most infuriating to me, is something like this that is preventable. Then you got to look at the reasons. Well, why haven't they implemented the science of forestry? And then you look at the Endangered Species Act. Then you look at they don't want you to cut down a tree. They don't want controlled burns. They don't want, it's going to impact the environment. What's the air like out by you today?
Fortunately, the wind is going out to sea, and so at my house, I'm fine. But the air quality in L.A. is it's horrible. The good thing is when you talk about you can watch the smoke clouds going, and all day this morning, they were going straight out to sea, meaning the wind is pushing them very fast and the winds are very high. I have had noticed in the last hour or two, the clouds are going, are going much, much higher, meaning the winds are calming down and it's not pushing the smoke out to sea quite as fast. So hopefully we're at the other end of those Santa Anas right now. But they say there are going to be some, not as difficult, not as tough as we've had today, through tomorrow, and then hopefully we get through it. But I was looking at the news out here, and there was like 20 homes on the beach, all gone, on Malibu, on the beach, on PCH. 20 homes in a row, all gone. It's just
unbelievable
to me. You think you have a place on the beach, you're going to be okay because the fires are up there in the mountain, but nope. Yeah, 20 homes gone right on PCH.
Well, let me ask you. You said during a previous fire you stayed. Now, had you taken measures to clear any brush near around your home on your own?
Oh, absolutely, Sean. I'm a professional when it comes to this stuff. All
right. So my question is, did you have to get permits to do it, or did you just say, I'm clearing out my property, I'm not going to make it a fire hazard?
I'm not going to tell them. I'm just clearing my property. But if you try to move any dirt on your property, there's some kind of flower. And the guys tell me, go around your property and look for this flower. And they gave me a picture of it. If you find any of them, pull them out. So when they come to look and say, oh, I'm going to move this dude from here to there, there's no one of these flowers, you'll never get to move it because it's an endangered flower or something. All kinds of restrictions like that.
So let me get this straight. So because you took proactive measures while other homes were lost near you, your home remained intact and you stayed with your home, even risking your life. I mean, I have a video of some guy, I don't know, he put it up on social media. I mean, his house is surrounded by flames and he's like, I'm not leaving my house. And he's out there with like a fire hose trying to fight back this fire, which I think is admirable, but I'm not so sure that any house is worth it.
I would agree. Well, it's certainly not worth your life, but I have a house that really, when it was built, I was the second owner. Was really built not to burn. There's metal doors, metal window frames. The only thing I had was wooden garage doors. But it's all about preparation. I have guys come in and give me 75 foot of clearance, so there's no grass or brush or anything within 75 feet of the house. It's on top of a hill. I have my own water system, so I've got fire hoses. I've got my own generator. So when the electricity goes, because it will go off, you still have generators to run all the pumps and do everything. I got a gas pump that will pump out of the pool and just shoot the water all the way over the house. I'm so prepared. I got Nomex. I used to race cars. I got Nomex suits, Nomex shoes, Nomex gloves.
You sound like me. I'm like a crazy, prepper when I can be. I was even crazier when I had a big house. I mean, I had generators galore. I had 4,000 gallons of propane. Obviously, I'm a firearms enthusiast. I had emergency food and water and supplies and medical supplies. I have it all. I'm crazy.
Yeah, I don't have the food supplies, but I do have. I think my house is not going to burn. It's just I will not let it burn. And
because you're being proactive. I mean, you're taking these necessary steps. Look, for example, everything's changed in Florida after that building in Miami collapsed. I mean, every single condo building in Florida has to be up to code, and you have to be hurricane prepared, and you need hurricane windows and doors, and I think it's just the right thing to do to prepare people for a worst case scenario. But but here's the problem. It doesn't matter how much homelessness, doesn't matter about quality of life, doesn't matter how much crime, doesn't matter how many homes might burn to the ground in the end. California will remain a left-wing radical haven, and I don't see it ever becoming conservative again. Do you? I only have about 20 seconds.
Yeah, no, I don't know, Sean. I look at California now; it's gotten a lot redder. Have you noticed?
I noticed, but not red enough. I mean, I would bet every penny I have your next governor is going to be Kamala Harris, who, by the way, her home is under an evacuation order.
Please, Sean, you just ruined my day.
Sorry, I'm just telling you.
To move out.
Mark my words.
California. Yeah.
All right, Caitlin Jenner, our prayers, in all seriousness, are with the people of California, regardless of the incompetence of government. They're losing, their whole lives are being upended here, and lives are in jeopardy, and their prayers are with us. Thanks for checking in. We appreciate it. 800-941-SEAN, our number.